Greetings once again, fellow travelers. My name is Will G. Witt. Thank you for joining me in a journey to discover more about an American composer whose influence on the symphonic landscape has been enormous. John Adams' entire body of work, spanning over 5 decades, is well represented in this piece you are hearing now, and something which we will examine more closely in the second module of this two-part series. 30 years ago, Short Ride in a Fast Machine was my first introduction to Adams's compositional style. The piece still captivates me today, and so I hope that on our short ride, you will be similarly inspired by Adams's creativity, his innovative post-minimalism, and often whimsical but serious approach to composition. John Adams occupies a unique position in the pantheon of American music. His works, both operatic and symphonic, stand out among contemporary classical compositions for their depth of expression, brilliance of sound, and the profoundly humanist nature of their themes. Over the past 40 years, Adams's music has played a decisive role in turning the tide of contemporary musical aesthetics away from academic modernism and toward a more expressive, expansive language, entirely characteristic of his surroundings. Scholarly observers like Catherine Pellegrino have suggested that certain elements of his writing, such as how this work demonstrates closure, or the lack of it, should best be interpreted within a postmodern framework. For reasons that I believe will become apparent in the second module, and because postmodernism in music is often difficult to define or to identify, Adams's style, at least as it is manifested in Short Ride, is probably best labeled as post-minimalism. Minimalist composers Philip Glass and Steve Reich were criticized, perhaps unfairly, for writing what some consider to be repetitive or monotonous works devoid of either intellectual rigor or expression. John Adams, who could be considered a successor to Glass or Reich, put minimalist music on a fresh path, one that has won both admirers and detractors. Over time, without giving up the minimalist roots of his style, Adams forged an expanded language suitable for larger, more ambitious works. Later, we'll take a closer look at how he reimagined this new iteration of minimalism. Perhaps even now, though, as you listen to Short Ride in the background, you can already hear elements of Adams's new compositional style that seem to exceed the boundaries of pure minimalism. Born and raised in New England, Adams learned the clarinet from his father and played in marching bands and community orchestras during his formative years. Like each one of you, I'm sure, he began composing at age 10 and heard his first orchestral pieces performed while still a teenager. The intellectual and artistic traditions of New England, including his studies at Harvard and his attendance at Boston Symphony Orchestra concerts, helped shape him as an artist and thinker. After earning 2 degrees from Harvard, he moved to Northern California in 1971 and has since lived in the Bay Area. I know, tough life, right? Adams coined the term post-minimalism, starting with his piece for string septet, Shaker Loops, in 1978. This style is characterized by greater dynamic contrasts and a more fluid and layered sound. The completion and premiere of Harmonium in 1981 was well received by critics and the public, establishing Adams as a major American composer ahead of his 1986 premiere of this work, Short Ride in a Fast Machine. Adams taught at the San Francisco Conservatory for 10 years before becoming composer in residence of the San Francisco Symphony and creator of the orchestra's highly successful and controversial New and Unusual Music series. Several of Adams' landmark orchestral works were written for and premiered by the San Francisco Symphony, including Harmonium in 80-81, Grand Pianola Music in 1982, Harmony Lyra in 84-85, and My Father Knew Charles Ives in 2003. In 1985, Adams began a collaboration with the poet Alice Goodman and stage director Peter Sellers that resulted in 2 groundbreaking operas. You may have heard of Nixon in China from 1987 and The Death of Klinghoffer from 1991. The latter because it deals with terrorism and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has been the subject of much controversy, prompting Adams to respond to charges of anti-Semitism, which I feel are entirely unfounded. Another opera, Girls of the Golden West, which was set during 1850's California Gold Rush, is going to receive its world premiere this year at the San Francisco Opera House in November. Other signature Adams works that have become repertory with orchestras, choruses, and ensembles includes the aforementioned Shaker Loops, written for strings, the Dharma at Big Sur, which by the way is a concerto for electric violin inspired by the writings of Jack Kerouac, Dr. Atomic Symphony, which is a 22-minute symphony drawn from the opera, also his violin concerto, his chamber symphony, and something he entitled The Son of Chamber Symphony. Recent works include Absolute Jest from 2012. This is an excellent work for string quartet and orchestra. It's based on fragments of late Beethoven quartets. It was commissioned for the San Francisco Symphony's 100th anniversary. His saxophone concerto, written for internationally renowned saxophonist Timothy McAllister, and then Scheherazade II, a dramatic symphony for violin and orchestra, written for soloist Leila Josefowitz. I was fortunate enough to be in attendance at the world premiere of Scheherazade II. Let me tell you, this is a truly amazing work, and I highly recommend it to you if you get the chance to see it. John Adams is an active conductor, appearing with the world's major orchestras and programs combining his own works with a wide variety of repertoire, ranging from Beethoven and Mozart to Ives, Carter, Zappa, Glass, and Duke Ellington. In recent seasons, he has conducted the Berlin Philharmonic, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, London Symphony Orchestra, the Wiener Symphoniker, Los Angeles Philharmonic, and the orchestras of Seattle, Cincinnati, Atlanta, and Toronto. Adams is currently a creative chair with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, where he collaborates often with Maestro Gustavo Dudamel. This season sees worldwide celebrations of Adams' 70th birthday. The Berlin Philharmonic has named him composer in residence, presenting several of his most important works throughout the season, including the famed City Noir. Adams also conducts the renowned ensemble during his residency. In addition to being a composer and conductor, John Adams is also a highly esteemed and provocative writer. He's a contributor to the New York Times Book Review and is written for the New Yorker and the Times of London. Hallelujah Junction, Adams' much praised volume of memoirs and commentary on American musical life, won the Northern California Book Award for creative nonfiction and was named one of the most notable books of the year by the New York Times. I found one particular quote to be particularly interesting. As a composer, he writes, I believe that music has the power to inspire a renewal of human consciousness, culture, and politics. And yet, I refuse to make political art. More often than not, political art fails as politics, and all too often it fails as art. To reach its fullest power, to be most moving and most fully useful to us, art must be itself. 21st century composers have drawn considerable inspiration from John Adams. Works like Urban Dances by Morales and Joy in All Things by Balmages feature minimalist rhythmic and harmonic figures similar to those used in Short Ride in a Fast Machine, which is the object of our focus in the next module. I've had the unique pleasure of conducting each of these phenomenal works, Urban Dances, Joy in All Things, and Short Ride. Links to these pieces may be accessed here in the list in the bottom right-hand corner. See you in Module 2.